So everybody, okay. So I formally say hello to you, and we are having a review right now of reading paper. So this paper is actually paper two, and it is comprised of two parts. So the first part is reading for ideas, and the second part is reading for meaning. As a whole, the paper is of 1 hour 45 minutes and of 50 marks. So it's very important that we know that the marks are equally divided between the two parts, that is reading for meaning and reading for ideas. But the time needs to be divided wisely. Ideally, you're required to spend 45 minutes for the first section, which is easier than the second one. So you can invest an hour for the second section. So let's see what it's all about. The first part, reading for ideas, is of 25 marks, and it's based on a factual communication. So it's actually a passage. So in the examination, you are going to get the question paper and an insert. And in the insert, there would be two passages. The first passage would be used for the first section, and second passage would be used for the second section. First passage would be based on fact. So it's a factual communication, so there would be definitely opinions as well, but it's non-fiction. It would be approximately 700 words long. It could be an article, it could be an original letter, or any discursive essay which has advantages and disadvantages, or maybe any other theme. So the first thing the students need to do is to make notes. And for making notes, they would read the question. And in the question, they'll find out two themes clearly mentioned. So these themes could be similarities, dissimilarities, causes, effects, advantages, disadvantages, or sometimes even there are timelines as well. Sometimes they come up with a product and say that what was the reason for the rise of popularity, or what was the origin of this thing. So in such a way, they come up with two particular themes, and all the content points are to be extracted from them. So there would be two boxes or lines would be given to the students, and for each theme, and students need to write all the answers within the question paper, because there would be spacing given for each and every question. So the answer should be precise and should fit in the given space. And apart from that, there is also example for each theme given. For example, if the theme is about advantages of cars, so just below that, there would be an example given how this point should be mentioned. So the students need to read out from which paragraph they have to extract the content points, and then finally they have to read the passage. They may read it twice, once as a whole to get an idea, and second time to extract the content points. So it would be clearly mentioned from where these points are to be taken. For example, they may write from passage from paragraph 2 to 7, or from the whole paragraph. I mean, from the whole passage. The students are required to find out at least 12 to 14 content points, although the marks are 12. The surplus points are for the case when some of these points which they have written are wrong. So there's no negative marking. The extra points that are written would be taken as the additional key points. They would be taken as answers, and points would be given to them. So once they have made the notes, the second step is to write a summary. And this summary would be of 150 to 180 words. To begin the summary, there would be 10 words given. In the summary, the content points which the students have extracted from the passage would be used in the students' own words to compose one or two paragraphs. There's still a confusion among students whether to write one paragraph or two. So I just asked them to use logic. How many themes are there? So if there are two themes, it means there should be two paragraphs, because when you change the paragraph, you actually change the theme. Even if the students are going to write in a single paragraph, that would be perfectly okay. Student actually confused by the wordings, just like write in continuous form. So student feel that continuous means there is no paragraph to be formed and everything to be written in the same paragraph. Continuous paragraph means in a form of just like an essay when you compose paragraphs. The continuous is the opposite of note making. Here at this stage, students would be marked for relevance and coherence, and the details would be afterwards, that how they have to write the summary. And the last type of question is the one in which the students would be required to answer some critical thinking questions. And they could be of finding facts or opinion, or they could be even about identifying, warning, and discriminating it with advices. And it could be even on criticism as well. But so far, in the papers that we have since 2018, when this syllabus was revised, we have only facts and opinion questions. Either students are asked to extract three opinions, three facts, or two opinions, one fact, or two facts, one opinion. So far, it's quite easy. This is the description. As I told you that they have to extract 12 content points. It's of 12 marks, but it's better if they write more than 12. Some extra points would give them advantage. And then about the lifting, it's better students do not use own words at this stage, because they would be quite confused in the next stage when they have to write summary, that whether these words are their own words or author words. So it's better at this stage they just lift, or they may paraphrase, they may change the forms, or they may change the positions of the words, or they may delete the extra information, but they need not to use their own words. Then a student need not to write in sentences. They can be as precise as a phrase, just three lines phrase. Three words phrase, four words phrase. That's it. So these are some of the themes that were asked in the examination in the previous 2017 papers, where the themes were about sugar, the origin of sugar and the spread of sugar, and the reason of and the decline, the popularity of sugar. And there are two themes for the other passages about cars, about elephants, about animal and people. So this gives you an inkling that there could be any type of theme given. So there is no hard and fast rule that all the time they're going to have problems and solutions and advantages and disadvantages. It could be anything. This is going to give you a clear-cut idea about how precise the information or the note making could be. For example, when I asked you that students can write in phrases, or maybe they curtail down the details, at that time they need to know that what is the detail, and is the detail significant enough to be included in the note making or not. So in this case, you can see that this was about the case in which animals were getting killed, and they were asking about the reason. So if the students are just writing that the extermination carried out, so they are being killed, so this is not the correct answer, because they need to give the reason that why are they killed. So if they write extermination carried out for reward, then only the examiner would get an idea that, okay, now you have written the reason, so you would get the point. So if in the theme you are asked to give the reasons, then you should not delete the most significant information. For details, it's very easy for students to find out what is detail, because details are written either in brackets or dash, or colon is there, and afterwards there is detail. Or for example, they write the phrase such as, like, for instance, for example. So these all phrases make it very clear that whatever is written afterwards is actually counted as detail and should not be included in the notes. And then for each theme, there are no more boxes, but there are lines given. So the students need to write in the same lines. They shouldn't write here and there and expect the examiner to find out where are the answers. Points, should they be, in order or not in order, that can be easily understood by the fact that is it in any chronological order or not. is it significant to be right, I mean, in the same order, because there are years given, there are dates given, then yes, you should keep the order. But otherwise, if it's jumbled up a bit, it's okay. Another thing is there are two themes. The students often ask whether we should write equal points for both the themes or not. So the answer is very equal. It should not be lopsided. And lopsided here means it shouldn't be like if you're writing 14 content points. So it shouldn't be like 10 for the first theme and 4 for the second one. Then it's completely lopsided. But if they have balanced it in such a way that for the first theme they have 8 content points and for the second theme they have 6 content points, then it's all fine. It's perfect, and they would get the marks for it. At this stage, the students would not be penalized for any other thing. They would not be penalized for grammar or spellings, anything, because they are only copy pasting. Then the summary writing, as I said, that the students are going to write it in 1 or 2 paragraphs. It depends upon them. I ask my students to write 2 paragraphs. So it will actually give them a clear idea that how much importance they have given to the paragraphs. So it wouldn't be lopsided when they are going to construct paragraphs which are almost equal in number of lines. Another thing is whether they include the extra points or not. The students need to know that extra points are not needed to be included. They can pick up any 12 content points to write them in their own words. But at the same time, they have to keep a check on the word count. If the script is short here means less than 150 words. So then it's better if the students add on more points. If the script is all okay and it's comprised of 150 words, then there is no need to write more than 12 content points. There is another point, like the examples that are given by the examiner, are they included in the 14 or 12 content points which I'm talking about constantly or not? So they are never counted because they are given as example. That is why the students wouldn't get advantage or marks for it. So they have to exclude those 2 content points and then count whether they have written 12 to 14 content points or not. Now at this stage, the marks would be given for the marks of summary are 10. So they would be divided into own words and language. And when I say own words, it means that the students are not going to change only forms. For example, if beauty is written and they write beautifying, so it's not counted as own word. Own word means that completely new words. The synonyms are to be used, or if they cannot come up with a synonym, then they may write a description for it. Another thing that there are some jargons, there are some scientific words that are used for different themes. So students need not to change them. They can be used as it is. This is an example of the synonyms. You can see that there is a list of synonyms that are actually composed by my students. So I just gave them the most common words found in the passages of reading for ideas, and they have written 3 synonyms for each word. So if they have such list with them, it would be easier for them to practice summary writing. Okay, so after own words, when we talk about language, the first thing that comes to mind is actually linking words. Why linking words? Because of the fact that without linking words, it's very difficult to have the flow of ideas. We know it very well that we are taking 12 content points from different places, and they would be quite sentences would be quite jerky if they are not connected with one another. So in order to maintain the flow of fluency, in order to have a smooth transition from one point to another, it's necessary to use a linking words according to the need. They need to know what are the linking words for addition, what are the linking words for showing contrast or results. For example, you can just give the students a single sheet in which all these connectors are written, and when they are practicing at least once in a week, then they would be fluent at it and they would remember which which connectors are to be used for which verb. Okay, next, After linking word, the next thing important is actually the variety of sentences. It means that they should write simple sentences, compound sentences, and complex sentences, or maybe compound complex or complex complex. And for that, I often provide abbreviations to the students, acronyms, so it's easy for them to remember. So if they want to make a compound sentence, they can use fanboy, connectors, or conjunctions. And if they want to make, these are the examples, you can see that fanboys conjunctions are actually coordinating conjunctions, and they are used to join two independent sentences together. So here you can see that they are all highlighted with a red color, and these examples would give students a clear cut idea that both the sentences on, I mean, on one side and on the other side of the conjunction, they both are independent, and they can be meaningful even if this connector is being removed. So if this conjunction is removed and they are making sense, it means they are two independent sentences and they are merged together to create compound sentences. And if you talk about complex sentences, then it's very easy to make because you just need to use one of the I SAW A WABUB connector, I mean conjunction, and these subordinating conjunctions would merge together one dependent and one independent sentence. So for example, you take the example of if. So if phrase would be actually dependent one. For example, if you do not study, you will not pass the examination. So what I did is I started off with if, and this phrase, if you do not study, is actually depending on the second clause. So these two clauses, dependent and independent, when they are merged together, using subordinating conjunction would construct a complex sentence. You can use these acronyms to help your students come up with a variety of sentences. Then we have to check whether the errors that are in the summary are serious or not, because serious errors would be checked. And these serious errors, firstly, are actually the form of verbs, whether the verb forms are correct or not. There are students who are still writing teached, hutted, cooking. So this thing can be corrected. I mean, you can have a chunk of a lesson for grammar practice, in which you can just give a student some sentences with errors and ask them to correct them. The students mostly do not have the habit of proofreading. So when they will read these sentences, they would definitely recognize that these are the errors, and you would understand whether they are making mistakes or they are the serious errors. So if they are making mistakes, proofreading would eliminate them. But if they are errors and they still couldn't recognize them, that it means it is to be taught in the class. So it's up to you whether you want to have a whole class allocated for this purpose, or you teach these concepts in chunks in your lessons. Then the second error is of tenses, and tenses mostly occurs because sometimes it's asked in the theme that you have to write about the former time, and then in the next theme you're asked to write about the modern time. So the student need to understand that former time, okay, you have to use past tense, and then it's about modern time, you have to use present tense. So this differentiation should be very visible, and so students, if are making mistakes in it, then the examiner would definitely penalize them. Then the third, again, serious errors of sentence structures. For example, the students are not constructing these sentences correctly. They are using conjunctions that are actually misfit in the situation. This would definitely, deduct their marks. Then there would be omission or misuse of pronunciation. Oh, sorry, preposition, especially for since and for. Students cannot recognize that when the time is specific, then they have to use for rather than since. And the last thing is about the misunderstanding of the words. When they use synonyms or their own words, at that time they make most of the mistakes. They come up with words that do not match with the literal or figurative meaning of the words that are used in the context. Students need to be prudent. If they are coming up with new words, then they should know, is it the right thing to use. The student should not go for difficult words. They should go for variety of words. For example, if the word used is to be replaced, that they may write employed, consumed, but they shouldn't write a word which they have, not explored, but they have extracted out that word from the dictionary. They liked it and they started using it. So mechanical vocabulary is not at all encouraged at any stage, whether it's creative writing, directed writing, or if it's reading paper. They should come up with variety of words and a flow of ideas. The students even create problems here and subject verb agreement. So they need to know the rules so they do not make these problems or these errors in their summary because they would be penalized for it. And then the punctuation, most of the time students use full stop properly and they have problem in identifying the difference between comma and semicolon. So they need to know that semicolon is used when you're not using a conjunction to um, merge two sentences together which are independent. So the students need to understand the difference between comma, semicolon, colon, and full stop is mostly used correctly, so I wouldn't emphasize on it. Then the spellings, they need to be correct. If they are using simple vocabulary, they would not do spelling mistakes. But yes, if they are going to come up with over ambitious vocabulary, then definitely there would be spelling errors. And then the slips of or reputations, and these things can be easily identified by proofreading the word. And then run on sentences which break down the sense, which make illogical a script which cannot be understood by the examiner. So these are definitely, this is a serious error and this marks will be deducted. Okay. Can you hear me?